Welcome back to Breaking BizDev, the podcast that beats up, breaks down, and redefines business development for the professional services firms of tomorrow. Today, we welcome Anthony Garone, CEO and co-founder of Edify, technical content marketing for B2B and SaaS companies, also the host of Make Weird Music on YouTube, and also the author of Mental Prisons, a self-help book for nobody. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thank you, John. Wow, that was really nice.
I'm excited to check out your new book. I haven't had a chance to pick up a copy yet. If folks that are listening to this want to check out your new book, where can they find it?
You can go to mentalprisons.com, and that'll take you to my personal website with all the links. And there's 2 free chapters that you can read. And the first hour of I call it the video book, which is a video of me recording the audiobook. That's also available for free.
People that are watching this on YouTube can see you have drums and guitars in the background of your video feed. So do I. Unfortunately, we're not jamming on the tunes today, but we are jamming on some business topics. So, Anthony, on the Breaking BizDev podcast, we like to shine a light on what's broken about business development in the professional services, the B2B spaces. Your focus on B2B companies, and you offer a professional service yourself. I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think is broken about business development today?
Well, I primarily work with B2B tech SaaS companies, and the number one CTA I see is talk to sales or get started, book a demo, which literally nobody wants to click. I have never wanted to click talk to sales. I will do everything I can not to talk to sales. And there's actually Gartner data to support this. I think they said 75 to 80% of surveyed buyers, like thousands of B2B buyers, never want to talk to sales. And some small percent of that number, after making a purchase, do regret not talking to sales, but most don't. And so I think one of the biggest problems with selling today is the idea that sales, the act of selling is what it was 20, 30 years ago. It's changed, and expectations have changed, and people want to self-educate. So I think that's a huge difference, or a misunderstanding and a misapplication of CTAs in today's market, at least as far as I've seen with most tech companies.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit, because I think you're absolutely right. Who wants to talk to sales when you can go out and look up all the information you need to make an informed decision, right? And especially with Chat GPT and generative AI, you're able to ask very specific queries and get very specific answers back too. And so that puts more power into the buyer's hands in terms of how they want to engage with certain companies and understanding what kind of a solution they can provide.
Absolutely. If you aren't looking at your website and your sales collateral as the conversation itself, then you are stealing the opportunity from yourself and handing it over to your competitor, who is ready with all of the content for someone to self-educate and self-select. So I am trying to get all of my clients on board with take your entire sales process, start to finish, and put it online in content. And so I'll tell them things like, content is the new discovery call. No one wants to have a discovery call with you. And then they really don't want to regroup next week with a technical expert to hear the same exact story. And we've all been on those calls where the salesperson says, hey, this is John. John and I spoke last week. I told you about our conversation, but John, why don't you just share it? We've got our engineer here. Why don't you just share what you shared with me? And why do you have to tell the story twice? Because the sales team is not technical enough, because they don't know how to engage, with technical buyers. So I tell my clients, our content does all the heavy lifting, and the salesperson really just needs to build the relationship and follow a content-driven process where instead of always be closing, it's always be helping. Every time they hear from when a prospect hears from a salesperson, it should be, well, I'm going to get valuable information that helps me instead of, oh, great, another email from the sales guy who he's going to want me to set up a call or reply to some email or subscribe to some stupid thing that's just going to waste my time. Like, nobody wants that. And apparently this is news to a lot of companies.
When leadership thinks about investments in marketing, it's mostly through like a lead generation lens, right? And the de facto call to action, like you said, is typically like talk to sales. But from your experience and maybe how you're advising your clients, what would be a better call to action than that? What replaces that?
My goodness, there are countless other ways of going about this. My former business partner, she used to say, learn more is the khaki pants of CTAs. And I think talk to sales is the same kind of thing. But like a friend of mine, he runs a music website and he sells a service related to music. And his CTAs are like, get started, sign up. I said, why do people come to your website in the first place? And he said, well, they're interested in doing this music thing online. So I just say, then make that your CTA. Do this online, do the thing that you're there for. And if you don't want to just jump all the way to the, to the end game, just map out like start to finish what your sales process should look like. Because you don't want to just shoot your shot in the first conversation that you have with a potential prospect. Like if I met you at a bar, I wouldn't be like, hey, John, tell me about yourself. You tell me about your business. And then I go, oh my goodness, I've got this thing. You've got to go buy it right now. Let me tell you, I'm going to get you started. It's like, no, what are some of the first things that I would share in that conversation? It might be like, let me show you how you're not doing this. Or maybe instead of doing this big, huge thing, you want to do a small step. Like, what's the next baby step to getting you to being a customer? And so when we write out email sequences, every email in the sequence has a separate one pager or a PDF or an article link or something like that. And that's really what guides people through this funnel. And like I said, it's always be helping. You are in service to the end user. So what is that first thing? It might just be evaluate your readiness for whatever. I know that sounds so lame, but like, I'm just thinking of a recent one pager that I wrote, or as a sort of a PDF guide. It was like your readiness for identity and access management. Here's a checklist. It can just be download our free checklist. It can be watch our 90-minute solutions guide on great identity and access management. There's so many things that you can do. Most people are not going to buy the first visit. So like, why are you catering to this mythical person who reads your website as though they don't know what you do, and then they're magically ready to buy when they get to the bottom of the front page, as though they're going to read it anyway? So I just think make something appealing that's going to get somebody to actually do something. That's a baby step towards buying your product.
And then you said something else that was really interesting that I wanted to explore a little bit, and that was the content is the new discovery call. So let's talk about that a little bit. From my perspective, I always viewed that discovery, that initial conversation with a prospect, it's very much like a two-way street, right? It's like they're evaluating you as a service provider, but you're also evaluating them in terms of, are they an ideal buyer of our services or our product? So I'm curious, like, in what ways is content the new discovery call, maybe from like both perspectives?
Yeah, well, sales is ultimately a form of gatekeeping, and you want to keep people out who are not qualified and let people in who are ready to hand over hard-earned dollars for whatever it is that you're selling. And so I think you just need to think of it as this sort of intentional and purposeful gatekeeping, where the two-way conversation through one-way content stream is really, let me share everything that I think that you are going to want to know, from top of the, from interest all the way through to decision. So if you were going to buy maybe a new guitar and you went to some new brand, there's a brand called Hills Guitars, and I've been seeing Hills Guitars on YouTube quite a bit. I'm not going to go to the Hills Guitars website and say, buy a guitar. Like, that's not the CTA. The discovery call is really going to be, hey, watch this interview with one of our luthiers, or see our luthier on Rick Beato's channel, or whatever. Like, it takes 7 to 12 touches, I think, before someone is even actually interested and remembers your brand in the first place. So I would just be serving up as much of these initial cool, engaging talking points, which is what you would do in a discovery call anyway. Unless you're selling a very bespoke service where you really need to know the specifics of your prospects, context, there's almost no reason to have a conversation in person unless they want it. And at that point, you have a link that says contact in your nav bar, and they can contact you and they should hear from you right away. But otherwise, in terms of a discovery call, what's your agenda for the discovery call in the first place? And how can you replace that agenda with a bunch of content that helps the person through what they would have learned in the discovery call anyway, but they can do it without wearing pants at 10:30 at night on the toilet on their cell phone,
And oh, by the way, going through that exercise of developing that content, there is a level of understanding that happens organizationally around your prospects, right? So there is kind of like that two-way street a little bit when you go and you research a certain buyer persona and try to understand what challenges that they're faced with, and you create content around that. That process helps you understand kind of what they're going through. So that kind of acts as like a de facto mode or method of understanding and emulating that two-way street.
Exactly. You don't want to just say, hey, go read this series of blog posts. You want to make special pieces of content that feel like they're purpose made and they're made for that specific prospect. Like somebody should be going, wow, these Hills guitar guys, they really get like why I'm even interested in buying one of their guitars. If you buy a car, now it's like a $35,000 minimum purchase unless you're buying used. So I went through this buying a Volkswagen Atlas several years ago. I watched every YouTube video about 3-row SUVs. I looked at all the competition. I looked at every stat that matters. I only needed a 3-row SUV because I have 3 kids. But there's a whole lot of reasons to get a 3-row SUV that I didn't even know about. So I felt like ingesting all of this content was enriching my life. Like I was learning more about vehicles and learning about why I was even interested in this purchase in the first place. So that feeling is kind of what I think you should be after from a sales perspective. Like, how can you offer exactly the kind of engaging content experience that a prospect would have because they're just interested in buying something like what you are selling? It doesn't have to be your product. You can basically sell the idea that leads to your product. So there's just so many ways of going about this. And from the prospect's perspective, I want to go and be like, yeah, they get it. Yeah, they know how I think. They know what I want to spend. They know my demographics. Like,
They've
it's
provided
easy.
me the information that I'm looking for.
Yeah, instead of making me go dig all over the place, like use your competitors' like content if you need to. Like, who cares if you're helping someone make a decision and your competitor came out with a video that's helpful? Like, you can just acknowledge one of our competitors, did a great video about this, and that builds trust with the prospect. It feels awkward as the seller, but you're not necessarily going. It's an opportunity for you to prove that you have a better product, that you have a better offering, and you can just say, yeah, there's other people in the market who sell this too, because it's great, because it's valuable. Here's what they have to say. We still think our product is better for these reasons, but they did a great job presenting this. Help me feel like you're a trustworthy person or company to buy from. Provide an experience for me. We don't have retail in B2B, so give me that sort of retail feel-good experience I get going into a cool store. And then at the end, I might make a purchase.
Yeah. Well, this is great. So to kind of wrap things up, it sounds like those, instead of going right for talk to sales, let's give buyers a little bite of the apple, whichever direction they want to go, whatever information they're looking for. Let's present buyers with the information that they're looking for, not only to satisfy their thirst for knowledge, but to demonstrate an understanding of them. And then finally, be in a position that builds trust enough to, when they're ready to buy, they think of you, even if you do recommend a video from your competitor. So this has been an awesome conversation, Anthony. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you're embodying it. You could have started this podcast saying, "This is the Breaking Biz Dev podcast." Click the subscribe button. Make sure you like and share it with your friends. They don't even know what we're talking about yet. And that to me is the equivalent of sales today. Biz Dev today is you clicked our link, subscribe, like, get on our email list, buy something from us. Like, no, let them listen to the conversation and they can make the decision. Make that your biz dev, and your sales. You may have fewer leads, but those leads will be higher quality.
Amen. Where can folks find your website, or how can they contact Edify?
Thank you for hosting, John, and thanks for having me. Edifycontent.com is the best place to go. And then for me, you can just go to mentalprisons.com, which leads to my personal website in case you can't remember how to spell my name. Mentalprisons.com is easier to remember.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.